The following is from a legislative briefing hosted by the Stuttgart Chamber of Commerce on Friday, March 22nd. The briefing was presented by Senator Jonathan Dismang and Representative David Hillman.
On this legislation that permitted the churches that have a school, and if they vote to permit their congregation to carry guns, then the teachers in that school, the church school, can also do that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Were there any, and I tell you where I'm coming from, for one thing I was thinking about, like our church, is there a definition of school? Like we have a nursery school. They have a graduation every year where you are too old to go to our school. So, and it's there in the church. So if our church votes to let the congregation carry guns, can those people down there with those small children, or any age children, and let me finish my other questions and then y'all can answer them all. And then, are there any guidelines on the use of these guns? Is there a place where they have to be stored? And also, are the parents notified who all has a gun that they are bringing to the classroom?
I think all that would be determined by the church, the entity itself. I mean, you can put whatever guidelines you want to.
So you're going to strictly leave it up to the church itself?
Yes, ma'am.
To do whatever?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's up for the church to allow it or to not allow it, and be up to the church to, put the guidelines in place on, all those things that you mentioned. So it would be up to the congregation or the, if the congregation delegates that power to the elders or whatever it may be, then it would be up to them to,
Well, and the way churches go, and usually you're going to know what they do, but they could very well decide to do that, and if you had your child come to that school there that is not a member of that congregation, there's no way you would know that.
Well, but again,
you would not be, if they don't have to notify you and tell you.
It's posted. It has to be posted at the church, isn't that right?
I believe there's a posted.
Would it be posted at the school, at the entrance to the school also?
It says at the church.
Well, that could be in front of the church,
the
entrance to the school's in the back.
Yeah.
That doesn't.
But I don't think there's any, the one thing that we can't do is legislate what happens in the church. I believe, and I think you may agree.
Well, that's what you all have already done. You've already legislated what they can do in the church. You've already been a preacher and a doctor this year, and I'm through. But I think it's bad legislation, and until you all just, you ought to just go ahead and say, we're going to cater to all these groups, and that want everybody to have a gun and carry a gun anywhere they want. So we're not going to Mickey Mouse around and do a church here and a school here and this here. We're just going to pass a law that everybody in the state can have a gun, can carry a gun anywhere they want to.
Can I be facetious?
Well, you don't think I was? Go ahead. No, it's just, it's
Can we say that Wanda's in favor of open carry then?
Well, all right. Now, what I say is, you all might as well, because that's exactly what you're doing.
But that was about the only bill that got stopped that had anything to do with guns this time.
What?
Was the open carry bill.
Yeah.
There was a bill out there to allow people with concealed carry permits to walk down the street with one strapped on their hip.
Yeah, if they're going to have it in their pocket loaded, I just assumed they had it in a holster so I could see the damn thing.
Okay.
Right.
Well, we've taken care of guns now, so.
No, they have done that. They have not taken care of the people, and this is going to come back and bite you.
I heard a little bit of that testimony about that. That was rather interesting about legislating, let the church, and I'm on the church council over Emmanuel Lutheran. We did talk about it. We're just going to basically leave it like it is. If we decide to do it, if you leave it like it is, you're not going to do it, basically.
Yeah, that means you got good sense.
If you don't do it, if you do it, you have to post it the way I remember. And I think it has to be posted. And there's some pretty good language right there. Posted I forget, is it conspicuous place? That means you better post it at all the entrances. When you start talking conspicuous, and I think there was some testimony about all entrances would need to be posted because of what you said. But there was some pretty good debate about that.
Well, if it's not spelled out, it will not be done. It will be just on the bulletin out front.
I don't know, I don't remember, you may remember, Senator, Representative, better than I do. I'm just out in the crowd listening to the debate about it.
I mean, I think the whole goal is I mean, there's a separation between church and state. There was a law in the books that prohibited a church from doing something, which would be even allowing, members with concealed carry to carry. I mean, all of it is very permissive for a church so that they're able to set their own guidelines. And if they want to notify, they can notify the entire congregation who carries, who doesn't carry. They can notify the teachers. They can not allow the teachers to carry. I mean, that's all up to those individual entities. Okay. And I respect those individual entities and those individual rights that they have to do that. And the whole point was, in my opinion, to let those entities, exercise those rights and write their own rules and based on whatever system it may be. I know rural churches in Arkansas, because I came from a rural area, would like to have the opportunity to protect the citizens, and they're not going to hire a guard to stand out in front of their church to do that. But they trust their membership enough. And I went to a church, there was 30 people, and that was the max that we had at one time, was 30 folks. And we're not going to hire guards, we're not going to hire folks to watch over or stand at the entrance, but we trust our colleagues, our members, and our friends in the church enough that if they're carrying, they're responsibly doing that.
I agree with you, Senator, and on the rights of the people and of the church. What I disagree is you don't need legislation to say they can do it. If they have that right as a church, why make such a public entity about the whole thing? Why not just let the church vote? Why do you even need the legislation?
Because there was specific legislation that prohibited guns from being carried in churches at all. That was existing language, and it's in essence.
Well, then all you had to do was to strike that one clause and not go into everything else.
I think that's really
a very simple amendment that would have struck that one little thing. I'm through, I promise.
I want to thank both of y'all because Senate Bill 797 is a great bill. I've been explaining it to half the judges across the state, and that's our 911 bill. Sarah, it done the thing that we've been wanting it to do since 911's implementation, and that's come from the bottom up instead of the top down. So the smaller counties are actually going to get more money than the larger counties for once, rather than population-wide, and it's really going to help small and medium counties overcome the fact that the wire lines are being taken out so quickly. It affects our revenue the way it does. So I want to thank y'all for that. That's a good bill, and I appreciate being kind of let in on it and get a little input into it, and it ended up being a really good bill.
Has it been signed yet, Sonny?
It was signed Tuesday. Yes,
okay.
It was.
Okay.
I was proud to carry that and sponsor it and write legislation. So, the next step to that is setting up the task force to review 911 systems in the state. And of course, that's a byproduct of that bill too, right. Which will help us delegate, future fundings to make sure that rural counties, the folks in Pulaski County have a lot of coverage that those others in rural areas do not have, and those folks in Pulaski County also come to our rural areas, and I think they would like to have the same protections afforded there or here that they do there. So, like I said, I think it'll come along pretty well, and glad that the governor did decide to sign it.
Yeah, I'm commending you also for choosing the Department of Emergency Management to carry that out. They have the resources and the ability and expertise to do those kind of things. So I thought you made a good choice in picking Adam to kind of carry the ball on that and finally get us a state 911 coordinator that can kind of look at things and a little staff included there, so we can have continuity, because everybody does it different. So for once, I think we're on the right road, and I thank you both for that.
That bill also allows to complete the high-speed internet, the DSL.
Yes, that broadband is...
Broadband, that's the word I was looking for. And we had trouble convincing the metropolitan areas that it cost just as much to set that up, a square mile of that to set up in bi-meter shooting grounds as it does in downtown Little Rock.
Yep.
That they couldn't understand that, and how it was just as necessary that it be down there for this population of real sparse as it was in Little Rock. And they all had it. They said, you know, what's the deal? So, and that's going to be $17 million, and there was a bigger hang-up on that than there was on the 911 stuff.
There was in broadband, 17 million is going to broadband each year, and it's going to take a few years to get that done because it's expensive to go out and redo a switch and put cable in and put fiber in that will get you the high-speed internet. And we have a big county. We're 1,035 square miles, and I promise you about 800 of it needs broadband desperately. So that's going to be a good deal. It's going to take a few years to accomplish it.
One of the things that I never could understand before I got over there was I'd go speak to a House member and they'd say, I don't know what the Senate's doing. And I'd go speak to a senator and they'd say, well, I don't know what the House is doing. And I'd run back and forth between both of them, you know, and I knew what both of them were doing. And now that I'm over there, I don't know what the Senate's doing. All I know is what they send me. But one thing that I do want to tell you about today, and thank the senator for helping me with it. We've got a problem in Arkansas County and all rural Arkansas with the theft of coppers. And I think the last time I looked, there were 9 bills over there that had to deal with non-ferrous metal and the theft of it and how you were going to stop it. And I think when we were here last time, I talked about that a little bit, and about Representative Hammer's bill, which was probably a good bill, but it was so complicated no one could understand it. So after that one went down, and 2 weeks ago when I was here, I told you I was going to file a bill. Well, I did that Monday, and I told the bill writer when I went in there, I said, I want a bill so simple that a 12-year-old can understand it, and that's exactly what we got out of it. And I expected a lot of pushback from different people on it, and I knew that it wasn't a good bill in the form that it was in, but at least it got us started in the right direction. And I wrote it in such a way that it would go to agriculture rather than judiciary to keep all those lawyers from monkeying in it. And I've about got it in shape now. I think by Wednesday I'll have enough amendments on it to put a little bit of teeth into it and everything to present it to the committee, and I hope we'll get it out. And Jonathan, I called him and asked him if he would like to co-sponsor with me. He jumped at the opportunity, and I thank him for that.
Much needed bill.
And so we're going to see what we can do with it. The other people haven't given up on their bills yet, and I'm working with a coalition of House members to come up with a less complicated, more workable bill that will satisfy the lawyers. At the current time, mine doesn't have any fines, penalties, or license in it. You do have to get a permit from the county sheriff or his designee before you want to sell that copper. And I did amend it to amend everything out of it but copper.
That's a good move.
And so that's where a problem is, so let's just go straight to it. So I've got it amended now where it's just talking about copper, and the sheriff needs to look at that copper before they take it to the scrap yard. And that's the only thing that's the main thing, the gist of it that I want to do. We're going to get Leads Online involved in it. We're going to get the state police involved in it to try to take the load off of these high population counties where the sheriff doesn't want to have anything to do with it. Basically, they say it's easier to fill out a theft report than it is to look at a load of copper. But in rural areas in Arkansas, especially in East Arkansas, this is a safety issue.
It is.
Sooner or later, they're going to strip a rice well or a center pivot or something like that, and some daddy's going to send his kid out there, his 14-year-old boy out there, and say, go start that well. He reaches up there and he pushes that lever up, and that's the last thing he ever knows. Because when they strip that copper out, they're not particular about what they do to that box. And if they leave a hot wire in there, which is as fast as they do it, they just go in there and cut wires as fast as they can. It's going to charge that box, and it's going to go from that switch to that board to the ground. And that's what we're trying to prevent. Sure, we want to stop the copper theft because it's expensive to us, but we also don't want to create a hazard that's going to kill somebody. And I thank John personally, Senator Dismang personally, for helping me with that.
Good bill.
Where are we with the Planned Parenthood?
I don't think it's going to be going anywhere. So, and I don't see that being pursued this session. So, you know, we're right at the end of the session, maybe 3 to 4 weeks, if that much left. I'm sure everybody's ready for us to go home, and I understand that. You know, but there are some things that we're trying to wrap up here at the end of the session. One of those is tax cuts. You know, that's in negotiation between the two chambers and then the governor's office. I would anticipate seeing somewhere around $100 to $150 million worth of tax cuts. That'll be split amongst individual income tax cuts, reforms will take a large part of that. And then second to that will be what we've talked a little bit about in here, like manufacturer sales tax credits, energy sales tax credits. And those, we're going to be amending that bill to include grain bin and storage drying energy. So that'll be a part of that package. So that'll be good here, particularly, you know, in this area. And so I was really glad that the chairman of the Senate Revenue and Tax Committee agreed to do that, and that's something that he's been helping with too. But other than that, like I said, you'll see a tax package, and that'll be the amount. Typically, that's split between the two chambers. We've said it before, but the House is a little bit more focused on the individual income tax side, and the Senate, as typical, is kind of more focused on the business-related tax credits. And so there'll be a mixture, and hopefully, I mean, that's all got to wrap itself up here pretty quick. The second thing is the private option that we're looking at right now with the feds. There's a bill, we've drafted a bill. Now it's not been submitted yet, trying to let all the members have a chance to take a look at it and add any additional information they'd like to, or if there was something that they felt like needed to be there that wasn't. But I would anticipate that to be introduced sometime next week. That's the first part. And I would say on Medicaid, Medicaid's been the biggest driver of the entire session. But it's not just, a lot of people talk about the expansion side, but also we had a $400 million shortfall in our current Medicaid system. And so we're looking at, there'll be a point when we roll out not just the private option, but we'll be also rolling out reforms on the existing Medicaid system that I don't think will be scary to providers. They'll include eligibility changes and requirements, making sure we're doing proper testing there for recipients, and then also setting up an Office of an Inspector General, which will give us a little bit more oversight in how those payments are received. It's really, that's a police force, in essence, that would allow us to go after fraud and abuse in a much better way outside the purview of DHS. It may be housed in it, but they'll have their own separate entity. We'll give them a little bit more credibility with providers and those involved. And so those are two big components of on the reform side. The third part to it all is the exchanges and how we set those up. Right now we're in the partnership agreement with the feds, and there's been a push here in the last probably couple of weeks to go to what's called a nonprofit option. Our exchange system here in Arkansas, if we do successfully pass the private option, will be much different than any other states. The biggest problem in another state with the exchange was what was going to be called churning, and that was going to be the folks that were going from Medicaid to insurance and Medicaid to insurance. That was something that was going to have to be almost continuously monitored. You can imagine how big of a nightmare that is for someone that has a job, loses a job, knocks down on hours, whatever it may be. They're just churning back and forth, and that's where the costs were in exchange. Just how do you monitor that? How do you have something that can go out there and pull that much data in? Well, if we do what we're talking about now with the private option, it's more continuous because everyone is on the same insurance plan. They have the option to be on private health insurance, and that plan would stay with them, so there's no churn. But we're moving towards called a nonprofit model. The good thing about that, it would create really a firewall between the state and that entity. Other states, for instance, that have set up their own state-run exchanges, I think it's Minnesota is what I want to say, one of the states. They originally budgeted $31 million for their state-run exchange. Well, now the estimate's at $61 million and growing. And so they're actually talking about going back and raising taxes. So it'd be nice to have that firewall in case the cost of the exchange got out of control. And so that's what we're looking at. It'd be a separate entity that obviously we'd have some influence over, but one that, you know, would be separate and apart from the state, so that if something spiraled, you know, we wouldn't be putting taxpayers on the hook for it. So those are kind of the three things. We have, you know, reform on existing system, the private pay option, or the private option, and then the nonprofit option for the healthcare exchange.
And then the other thing we're going to have to deal with is Big River Steel.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's going to take a lot of time. We've got the reports back from our consultants. They weren't quite as rosy, and I wouldn't have expected them to be as rosy as what the DFNA has, or not, the AEDC has. And so we're going to have a meeting on that Monday afternoon where they're going to reveal all that to us. And that's either going to be up or down. I don't think there'll be a lot of,
Right.
it's not going to be a time-consuming issue. And I haven't heard anyone that has seen the report yet to say that this is a deal killer. But I haven't seen it, and all I've done is talk to some of the people that have. It's been held real close to the vest with most people have seen it.
And that's actually by statute. Once it leaves, for instance, if it left the President Pro Tem's office in the Senate, then it's FOIable. So it has to actually stay in his office. No member can take it out to look at it. It has to be all done. And the same thing goes for the Speaker's office. But it can't leave either one of those offices. And that's kind of, that's an interesting act, and what we're following through to get for the SIPR project is it's a very interesting process, what they set up a few years ago.
What the biofuel bill for the credits on that? Is it?
I haven't heard. I'm not even sure where that originated. I've gotten a couple of emails on it, but I'm not sure who's even running that.
I don't know
you
either.
know?
Right.
You know, which is probably not a good sign.
So we can't compete. All the states around us have it.
Some kind of
We
credit
don't,
place.
so that's really going to put hurt on those in the state.
I know in the past that's something that the governor was very reluctant to put any money towards, is biofuels, and I'm sitting in that position. Hasn't changed. I don't know for sure on that though. But I remember in the House, I mean, when it did come up in the House, there was quite a bit of opposition from the second floor for the credits.
One more thing, I know it's too late on this session, but it's really jumped up a bit as this year is this unemployment tax. They just keep raising it. And I didn't realize until I had more business that you develop something you owe forever.
Right.
And ours has gone from 3% to 10% of payroll for unemployment. And they keep extending unemployment for these people. And now I've got a bill I'll never pay. Can't there be a cap on how much they can raise that?
We did a lot of it 2 years ago. But it's taking a little while to get through. We had about a $330 million liability to the federal government for unemployment, for our unemployment insurance trust fund. And you know, in the state, you can receive unemployment for 98 weeks now, but only 26 weeks of that was from the state. We shortened that to 25. But like that was part of the reform, and that loan will be paid off sometime in 2014. And so when it's paid off, you'll actually see a pretty significant decrease in, you know, you have a surtax right now in your SUTA. You have another surtax on your FUTA that you would get at the end of the year. All that will go away when the debt's repaid. But we'd let it really spiral out of control. I remember when I first ran that bill, and right after we passed it, Bloomberg News had called, and it was a lady from New York, and she was asking me currently, what do you pay per week? And off the top of my head, I can't remember. And I told her, and she said, no, you don't. I said, you know, we really do. And she said, well, I live in New York, and we pay, I think it's $350 a week. We pay somewhere around $450 a week. You know, and obviously the cost of living between here and New York City is significantly different. We just really let ours get out of control. The reason that all originated, in my opinion, we'd let labor, I mean, and I'm sure there may be labor people in here, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but labor had really inserted themselves into a very powerful position on a group that negotiated all that unemployment. Well, that's changed significantly in the last few sessions. like I said, you've seen some significant reforms. There are probably, I think, 6 to 7, maybe even more than that, unemployment insurance trust fund reforms that will be coming through Senate Public Health. I mean, if the votes are there, obviously, in the next, before the end of the session. And so there'll be some more, ratcheting down that should benefit you.
You think it'll drop eventually?
Yeah, it will definitely drop, in short term because of the reforms that we did 2 years ago. But there'll be some additional reforms too in place that should help, long term. Our whole thing, you're supposed to have a surplus in your trust fund. And here we are with a $330 million liability instead of that. But again, that should be paid off, and glad we were able to do it. But I'm like you, when I paid payroll taxes this year, at the end of the year, I got this bill from the feds on the FUTA tax that I really didn't know was going to be there, and it was significant. And I'm sure yours was too. But that's like I said, the reform is, it's here, it's in progress, and there's some more coming.
It's hard to hire people too when they've got 99 weeks of unemployment coming.
That's right.
I mean, they can make more clear net money off of unemployment in the state of Arkansas than they can work at the county road department.
Right. Well, there's a cliff, for everything. Even Medicaid, for instance, has a cliff once you make over a certain amount. Here's a good example. We have Josh Miller, who's in a wheelchair. He draws disability and draws Social Security, and he can't make above a certain amount in work. So he actually filed a bill, and we passed it out of public health the other day to strip the caps off, because he said, I can't get insurance, and so I have to have my Medicare or Medicaid. And so, I can't make more than, I think it's $25,000 a year, or they take it all away. As soon as you get over that $25,000 mark, and so that's part of what we were looking at when we were looking at the private option, is there's no cliff until you get to 400% of poverty. So there's not a disadvantage for you working. The credits will, start clicking out, but you're still able to get a subsidy of some kind up to 400% of poverty level for your private health insurance. And so we kind of eliminated the cliff, which should help encourage people to not, limit what they make.
Josh Miller is a state representative that's a quadriplegic, gets around in an electric wheelchair, and it is an amazing person. Has a wonderful attitude about life and everything, and is a productive citizen, even though he can't even move his hands.
I do know the state chamber also on the unemployment is more actively involved in that as an issue with regard to businesses. And Randy Zook talks about it a lot, so they do represent business when they negotiate that.
So when I beat that bill every year, there's no way. It's impossible to pay.
One of the things we did in the House this week, and I expected the mayor to be here to fuss at me, and the judge has already fussed at me, but there was a bill out to take, depending on what part of the session you were in, up to $500 million a year out of general revenue to give it to the highway department. We split 70, 15, 15, and he finally amended it down to about half of that, which would be the sales tax on new and used cars. I think it's $218 million a year when it's fully implemented. And then something else he did to it that I felt like was a mistake, Judge, was on the 15% the counties get and the 15% the cities get. He allowed them to use that to spend on anything they wanted to. And he probably did that to get some votes or to help some folks, but I think it hurt his bill. And anyway,
Gets my wishes.
It went down
10 to 9
in the committee yesterday, I believe it was. And I don't think Jonathan's going to bring it back.
Not in this present form, I don't think.
No, Jonathan Barnett, he's chairman of
Got a different Jonathan.
Chairman of the Transportation Committee, former highway commissioner, a really nice guy. But man, he worked that bill just as hard as he could, and always in a nice manner, never in a threatening manner. And I commend him for the way he did it. But unfortunately, I was taught from an early age that you don't take general revenue and make special revenue out of it, because at some time in the next 2 years, that might not need to go to highways, it might need to go to prisons or something like that. So I was philosophically opposed to it, and I shared with the chairman when he talked to me at the beginning of the session where I was on that. And But anyway, I don't think that bill's gonna come back.
Probably won't, and we, with the county judges, philosophically, we're against bringing it into county general. But we asked them to put a clause in there that said that the majority of the money would go to county road. But it didn't end up that way. It ended up all going in county general, and basically we were already signed on to the bill and tried to get that part put in the amendment, weren't successful. So we were already to the point of no return. You know, it's like an airplane headed to England. You know, we could have jumped off and getting our life raft in the ocean, or rode the planes, and we landed in London. But we are going to have to do something about the way we fund our highways. We have got to do something about it. As every time we get an extra mile per gallon in a car or diesel truck, our revenue goes down. In my opinion, what we ought to do, we should have a committee look at doing what other states have done. And what other states have done, instead of having a per gallon federal and state tax, they take that tax and cut it in about half, and then they put a small percentage on it where you escalate. In other words, it comes up to where you've got some more money to do with, and it flows up and down with the economy. And that's basically what most states do. Is when, anytime you're tied into a per gallon, and gallon per mile keep going up, and the fuel goes, and the costs go, and highway costs go up, but the money to fund them with goes down. So we've got to do something about keeping up with inflation. A COLA, something like that, that you have on gas tax. That's who uses the roads or the trucks and the cars. So that's a perfect place to do it with. And that the Blue Ribbon Commission, when they came up with this, Wes Fowler's county judge, and that's one of the things, some of the leadership over there, that's what we wanted the Blue Ribbon Commission to look at, is to get us something that we, as the fuel rises, the tax rises some, to help pay for the cost of fixing the highways. And historically, we've always gotten 15%. Cities have gotten 15%. And it was well pointed out in committee that your kids that ride the school buses, and you who go to school, usually drive a city or a county road before you ever get on a state road. And counties have huge amounts of miles compared with states and with cities. So it's a problem that we're going to have to fix at some point, because we cannot continue to build good roads and have good bridges and safe bridges without the money to do it with. Just for example, I wanted Wes to testify on this the other day, but he you know, when they limited debate to 15 minutes, that kind of took some of our firepower away from us. Because one of the things that happened with asphalt has gone from $35 a ton to $100 a ton. And most people don't realize that. That's triple what it was just 4 years ago. And the highway department and us in the county and the cities are running, even patching potholes, $100 a ton. And that's humongous amount of money to even patch potholes with. So we are going to need a committee, and y'all are the people who can make that happen. I'd love to serve on it, because we have got to figure something to make sure we keep good highways and bridges. Because, and what I told a person the other day is, you can have the best roads you can have with asphalt, but if you don't have a good bridge on the road, you might as well close the road, because you can't go anywhere, and vice versa. And that's my take on highways and bridges.
All right, what about somebody else?
I had an economic development question I saw in the House Economic Development Committee. I approved a bill from Representative Darren Williams for the new market tax credits. I thought, yeah, y'all could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm the Senate sponsor on that one. But I mean, we do a lot of things to recruit new businesses in, utilizing, for instance, like the Quick Action Closing Fund. And we do some additional, you know, if an existing business and it's large and it's got a big enough investment, we'll utilize something like a quick action closing fund for those types of entities too. But with the new markets, what it's supposed to do is go into the depressed areas and allow us to make investments in those areas and for small business owners. I mean, and so you present a plan to the committee, that committee approves your plan. You don't actually start receiving the credits for 2 years. You have to prove that you create the additional revenue to warrant the credits for the state, if that makes sense. And so it's, you know, technically a cost neutral program, but it's one that's been utilized in other states pretty well and one we'd like to do here. Like I said, it's to kind of be our first attempt to do something similar, you know, to the quick action closing fund, you know, for a small business company. But it's not, and again, it's not exactly the same either, because it's got a lot to do with private. The majority of the investment is made by private investors that would oversee and be a part of that process. And so it's like it's an interesting concept and one that we hope will help a lot of areas. For instance, in Senate District 28, just get some job growth back here and help. I mean, like I said, we've got a lot of small business owners in the room, I know. But you can take a look at those credits and see if there's, you know, expansion plans that you could utilize and help with those funds and bring some jobs.
Yeah, I think that seems like a great idea too, that it involves small businesses. We run across that a lot.
Yeah, we just have
it's easy
not,
to get
yeah.
stuff for large manufacturers, but you have a need for the small businesses to have another tool there for economic development. So.
Right.
We also passed a water bill today out of the House that makes agriculture the #1 priority after all the things that you cannot regulate for. So it will be, we finally found what we needed, Wanda, and so we passed it out of the House today with no controversy. There was controversy at the beginning, but we were able to work that out with the people that thought we were trying to grab all the water, and I think that will go through the Senate okay also.
We had a good debate on things, usually work them out.
We got feral hogs out of the Ag Committee today. There's not a lot of feral hogs in this part of the state, but there are some in the South Arkansas County and some in Prairie County. And it's not a question of if you'll have problems with them, it's a question of when you will. And when they brought that bill to me early on in the session, and I guess before the session started, I looked at it and I said, it won't work this way, folks. And oh yes, it's got to be this way. And basically what they said was, when you trap a hog in a pen, you got to kill it right there in the pen. And I told them, you know, you can try it, but it's not going to work this way. And so it had to be defeated in committee once. And then now that they've made provisions so that certain hogs can be trapped, taken by a vet, tested for diseases that they carry, and then you can transport them to these hog hunting refuges where they a fenced-in farm where they can go in there and they charge them to go hunt those hogs, those feral hogs, and up to $1,000 a day, Mike. So I think maybe we ought to be raising feral hogs.
We got a few run LaGrew out by my house.
I wondered if you did.
We do, and I've seen them cross the road before, and I've seen places. If you've never seen a place in the woods where they have tore up, and they love gardens.
Were they at the refuge as well? They were messing.
Yeah, they're running LaGrew and out into there. Yeah, they immigrated in here, and it's rumor that some people put them in here, but that's only rumor.
Well, I don't know if that's a rumor.
Well, I don't know
haven't caught them yet.
I know of no one that's done that, Representative Hillman.
Well, back several years ago when we first started attacking this one, Wanda, you might have still been there then, but we had a representative down in southeast Arkansas that actually did that. When his hog population got low, he went to sale barn, bought a truckload of hogs, and took them out there and turned them loose on the levee, and there wasn't anything illegal about it then, and he was proud of the fact that he did.
Yeah.
So we had a difficult time getting anything done at the time.
Yeah.
But it is a problem, and it's a problem for the hog farmers. They like, if you go out and plant trees, you know, little seedlings, they love to go out there and dig them up. They love the roots on those.
Yes,
They like gardens. They like cornfields when the corn first comes up. They can run 40 acres in one night.
Yes, sir.
So it is a definite problem. A lot of people say they like to eat them. I wouldn't eat one for $1 million. They're nasty. That's just all there is to it. They got disease.
So chickens, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Chicken.
Chicken.
I'd rather have a steak any day.
Yeah, me too.
Anything else?
How did the vote on the magnet school funding, or I wasn't sure how what I was hearing just briefly on KER today as I was going back to work. They said that something had been determined about how magnet schools are the choices for schools for parents.
That didn't come out of committee, I don't believe. That was in committee yesterday, and it hit a. I'm not on education, but I think it hit a roadblock there, and I think it's still in committee.
So it hasn't gone in, nothing's happened.
Well, there's been a lot happening about it. There's been a lot of talk about it, and they're trying to get something worked out with everything. And so, how do you? I don't know how they're going to work out between what they want to do and what's legal. So,
Would that be resolved before the end of this legislative session?
I don't know. I will say this, that as time winds down and we get more ready to go home, it's going to be more and more difficult to get things out of the committee.
It's not through one of the House or Senate committee right now. It's really got a chore to get through there. As many bills as there are. We've got 2 ADQ bills that we filed. We're working with Director Marks and the Deputy Director Karen Bassett on those, the ones I told you about at our first legislative meeting. And I am proud to say that sometimes filing the bill makes people receptive to what you're trying to tell them. And we've accomplished 2 out of the 3 tasks that I wanted to do. One of them, if you remember, was if you have a violation, it costs you 10 points, and those points are put onto the Stuttgart landfill online so everybody in the world can see them. So they would not take the points off once you corrected the violation. That is being done. We have it in writing now, and it is being done. So that's number 1. Number 2 was if you have a landfill operator or a transfer station operator and they run over a leachate tank which drains the water out of and juices out of the transfer station, and you run over that lid, that you're not going to have an engineer tell you to put a new lid on that tank. We have gotten that far with it, and we're working on the 3rd point about the fact that if you have a ADQ come out and write you a violation, they should tell you how to fix it without having to spend $15,000, $20,000 on an engineer to tell you how to fix it when they have the expertise to do it. So we think we'll negotiate that this next week to where they will list the things that have to be have engineering on it, and everything else can be handled by the landfill operator. And we basically agreed that the landfill operators and transfer station operators probably need to be trained a little bit better to where they can write that report themselves and say, yeah, we replaced the tank, and fill out the proper forms and send it to ADQ. So we're almost there with all 3 points. So and proud to say that sometimes the filing the bill and will work wonders in negotiation.
I would like to reiterate again, the citizens of the state of Arkansas have access to as much information as either one of us do when it comes to things in committee, bills that have been introduced, bills that have been passed, things that have passed through committee. If you go to the Arkansas Legislature site, that's the site we use in the House and in the Senate to get all of our information from, and you can get as much information as we do. Now, as far as the inner workings and the deals that are being made and things that have been talked about, no, that's not on
No, you got to be there.
But as far as what we're doing over there, you have as much information as we do. And if I want to know something, that's where I go to find it.
What about the grocery tax?
It's gonna be part of the governor's tax cut package. If the money is available to do that,
If
It's
the
gonna be-
money's available after all these other tax cuts, is that what you're saying?
I think
that
that,
depends on who you talk to.
That you're saying
Good way to put
that the tax for the poor folks is not a priority?
No.
I think that's what you said.
No, I think you said that.
I think that's what you said. Oh, but I do wish we'd go on and do all that, because especially here in the rural areas, we have so many people who are minimum wage workers. I'm on my way to the nursing home now to BJ, because y'all know I do that every evening. The place is filled with workers that are all minimum wage. They have families, children, and you know some of these other tax things that are good that y'all have mentioned, but that does not help our working poor one bit. Whereas the grocery tax, and it doesn't seem like it's that much to be taken off, but it is to those people. It's a lot. And it's like you said, you used to go to the movie for a quarter. Well, some of these people, you know, a quarter or a dollar makes a difference.
Well, I agree that it should be part of that $100 to $150 million tax cut. So we're almost there. All we have to do is take that final part off. We've accomplished it, and we can still give a tax break on income tax and some other things. It needs to be part of that package. It really does. So I hope y'all will get that done.
like I said, I'm not on revenue and tax, and so I'm not part of those negotiations. I mean, the governor did set out a plan to cut that tax, and I mean, with the triggers in place, I mean, he had a pretty detailed way that he was going to go about doing that, and I'm not sure if we stick to his plan or if there's an alternative that's there. But
It was tied to finding extra money, mainly through the desegregation of Pulaski County. Sooner or later, that money's going to quit, and that would be about half the money that he needed to do his tax with, and it was all tied to that. Darren Williams has that bill, and he has filed it, but it's still sitting exactly where it was when it was filed.
it's a record.
Like y'all got done early.
Thank y'all for coming.
Yeah.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate you coming.
And, you know how to get hold of us.